Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. We're always with you now and with you until the end. And there was an echo in here, but I guess we didn't bring down the cone of silence. Anyway, do welcome back to the show that never ends, the one and only Conspiracy Cafe with me, your host, George Freund, and the one and only That Channel, because there's nobody else that rides the roller coaster to the apocalypse the way we do. Things are heating up so much in the Middle East. A lot of Christians in the States have sent me material about Jerusalem Day, and that's coming up on the 8th and 9th of May, so you may even have the show posted by then, worrying or being concerned about the fact that we may be getting closer to pushing that nuclear button just a little bit sooner as the major powers line up to kick ass for whatever benefit the Rothschilds' banks can get out of the crime syndicates. Shortly after that will be a major solar eclipse that's going to be happening on the 9th and 10th. They call it the Ring of Fire. More a southern hemisphere thing than a northern hemisphere thing. We've been sitting on the sidelines, but quite a celestial event. A lot of people peg some of these things as following patterns for earthquakes or volcanoes or just some sheer terror in wherever they happen to pass. That will remain to be seen. We like to play the game, the New World Order game, that nobody else can play or even begin to understand. So that's why we posted the movie Catch Me If You Can. And I had the satisfaction of watching that a couple of days back and just post some casual observations on there just to give you an idea, if you've watched the film, on how it works, how you can see the predictive programming. So just to watch the very beginning of the movie, I don't have time to show the animated beginning. You just see this character moving in and out, just changing dimensions, coming into something, leaving something with ease, total ease, because he's in control of the whole enchilada. The masters at the top of the matrix, the intelligence agencies, the people working in the back room for these types of groups, have that ability to enter into a stage, do their dirty work, leave the stage, and leave whatever actors were standing on the stage to be punished. So as we watch the story of the ultimate con artist Frank and FBI agent Hanratty, we hear some of the key words. One of the big ones was, when Frank leaves America and he goes to Europe, he's in Madrid. Of course, everybody remembers Madrid. 3/11 was one of the biggest power plays the New World Order pulled. And to most people, it just passes by. You don't clearly observe the fine detail. So when I see the door of Frank's apartment getting the extreme close-up and focus, something actors die for, to be in a major film and get a close-up, and the best they can come up with is the number on a door, and we talk Madrid and we see 3/11 forwards and backwards. We have to be concerned. We have to be concerned further, because look at the time that stopped. I didn't discuss that in the blog. I left that there for you to see on your own. Look at the time of the extreme close-up. 663. A double 666. Or a breakdown of 33 for 33 degrees of Freemasonry. And then, of course, on the other end, the total time of the movie, 1:40:42. So you got 6 and 5, 9. As part of the classic 9/11, perhaps? Are they telling us a date when this event, this attack on the train, is supposed to happen? Because that was the big story in the Google Doodle. Is it any surprise that number 3113 are numbers on train engines? Specifically a CP and a Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And then, just as a joke, one of the most popular, it's probably not a joke, is this model train engine is sold all over eBay on the internet, the New York Central. The target the RCMP found for the terror attack, the Via train between Toronto and New York City, the Maple Leaf train with this route, to perhaps destiny, where Ella Fitzgerald was in the Google Doodle outside the train station in Yonkers, New York, where the journey can end. So it's all a game, fun and games. Catch me if you can. They just throw it in your face because they know you can't catch them. Because very few people could discern information to that degree, so they can just pie it in the face to you. And you accept it, because you're playing at a much, much different dimension. They're playing way beyond three-dimensional chess. Maybe they're playing four-dimensional chess, and that's why the figure runs around at the beginning of that movie, in between, in between, in between. I came across a really good book a couple of weeks ago. Didn't get a chance to discuss it to any great degree. Probably don't have too much time to discuss it tonight, except to give you the title and tell you this one's an earth shaker. Rat Line. Soviet spies, Nazi priests. It talks about how Hitler got out of Germany. I had my theories. I've discussed them over the course of the history of this show. I remember coming across an obscure reference once where someone threw a bottle off a submarine in the North Sea. The bottle landed on the shore. The message in the bottle said that Hitler escaped on a submarine called the Nautilus. The Germans didn't name their submarines, they just numbered them. Quite a bizarre little anecdote in history. A lot of claims were made that he flew out to Denmark and was evac'd on a submarine. Even Agent 99 were watching, and I were watching this show on Kos off Denmark, and there was a Nazi submarine base just off the coast on an island the British blew up. Was that the stepping stone to get out? So in this book, there's a little footnote, and I'm glad I picked up on the footnote from a 1949 newspaper article in the Sydney Morning Herald. An AAP report. Sentence on pilot claims he flew Hitler away. Summary of testimony from Luftwaffe Captain Peter Baumgart, who insisted he flew Hitler and Eva Braun to Denmark in April of 1945, and from there they boarded a submarine. So this author's done a lot of good work in researching the Rat Line, where they went, what they did, and I was forming a supposition that the USS Nautilus was taken out of the South Pacific, returned for scrapping to the East Coast. It made a long journey, a journey that was just way too long to get to where it wanted to go, and probably made some detours, and had more than enough time to detour to the coast of Denmark, pick up Adolf, and take him out. There's documented stuff in there from the Counterintelligence Corps, which was one of the top military intelligence units in the war too, saying, you know, they openly made deals for all the hierarchy of the Third Reich to get out in cooperation with the Vatican. Get to Argentina and places beyond. They've identified Hitler in there and say that he made it to the South Pacific. He was in Indonesia, a place where a certain president's mother got involved in the oil business in the not too distant past. A woman who elicited a lot of change. Wasn't too good for the people down there as they switched dictators. Hundreds of thousands of them were murdered. But they claim Mein Führer's grave is down there, and he lived to a ripe old age and married a young local woman for entertainment purposes, I guess. But quite a significant story. And you know, as I go through that, I try to read things very, very slowly, pick up all the fine details, as you might have imagined, that most people gloss over and just walk by. Being in any kind of knowledge-based trek, we have to look for the fine details that most people pass over, could care less about. It won't take the time. You're in the forest with a guide. You want someone who hears every twig snap, looks for every footprint, can follow any trail. They're the better guide. In this type of media, I think you come to that channel and you get a better guide, someone who's going to take you through some of these things. Some of the things we have to go through are what's going to be happening in the Middle East. This report, what would war between Israel and Syria do to the already fragile global economy? Well, a lot of people think war helps these economies, and some people think it destroys them. But I guess it depends on whether you're making the bombs or catching them. That's usually the big deal. So the next major kerfuffle in the Middle East could easily tip the scale very, very quickly. Most Americans, and we imply most of the Western world, have very little idea what war is. They're so far removed from reality that they just can't even form the slightest concept of how bad or brutal it could be. They suggest in this article that Iran may be provoking a little bit of this conflict to get it started. Ergo, it was their rockets and missiles that were being bombed. These bombs were so big they registered, between 2 and 3 on the Richter scale. So these were probably bunker busters. Huge fireballs were seen. They say these missiles can really change the situation. This is a little tiny map. Tried to get a bigger interactive one and it didn't load, so it's still trying to load. So we'll stick with this little puppy here just to give you a little bit of the lay of the land. That, you see all these little red boxes and green boxes where all the various nasty things are. Damascus is right about there. And Bible prophecy is very, very clear that Damascus is going to get a haircut. So these jets came in and circled Assad's palace just to give it to him. There's talk in this article about how these freedom fighters attacked a plant, previously the Scientific Studies and Research Center, but they lacked the resources to actually penetrate its heavily fortified perimeters. But then, too, when these so-called weapons of mass destruction places are bombed by a hostile power like Israel, and they release the poison gas, well, that could be the whole kit and caboodle of why people perhaps have been dying from the effects of sarin gas, is it was released by the bombers. One little tiny codicil in international law that doesn't seem to make mainstream media too much is, under international law, if you strike a chemical weapons base and there is collateral damage to civilians, it is as if you, the attacker, used the chemical weapons. So as our Parliament here in Canada is meeting tonight for an emergency session, and as probably the American cabinet and some of the other Western powers have gathered together to talk about it, I'm sure they left out that little fine print, you see, because they're all lawyers and very educated people and all that sort of thing, and they don't read those fine details. They just know where they want to go and punch in the chops. So if Israel brought on the game changer, as I said, whoever uses those chemical weapons, that's a game changer. Well, if they blew up the plant and released the chemical weapons, they're the culprit. Are we going to roll up our sleeves and duke it out with Israel? Hardly. Game changers are only when you want to change the game for what you want to change the game. Qatar and Saudi Arabia are buying weapons for these so-called freedom fighters who are probably just no more than CIA, al-Qaeda mercenaries of one sort or another. After these airstrikes, there was a significant amount of damage done. We see in this close-up shot the large level of devastation. Syria pledges to retaliate, but that's just, like one of those childhood answers or something like that. I can't see that any one of them, I can't see that Syria or Iran or even together would have the guts to, to give the first blow to Israel. That's just bravado as far as I'm concerned. So Israel claims they were targeting missiles with this attack, although they did attack several times, 2 at least. Syria calls it a declaration of war. They claim that they risk engulfing the whole Middle East into conflict. They accuse Israel of carrying out terrorist attacks. Well, at least this little guy here didn't get the bird flu. He's still kicking. So it's a massive escalation. 3 sites were bombed primarily. Jamraya, a paragliding airport. Now there's one that I didn't see on the radar screen, and a site in May Saloon. So the trouble with us is we're outsiders trying to figure out what's happening on the inside. Ultimately, they say they were going after these Conqueror missiles, and they hit a shipment of these that were going to the border. Israel says they warned them several times. Hundreds of bodies were found in the town of Banias. Women and children were killed. Thousands have to flee. And you wonder, you just can't buy these trucks here in Canada with the heavy machine guns on the back. Now, they're something to take to your Second Amendment march. They're going to have a big one in the States on the 4th of July. They're going to Washington, D.C. So I don't really know, I don't know if all those people know that, guns are illegal in Washington, D.C., so, I don't know, they got enough jails to hold all these Americans in. But it would be nice to say that you had 5 or 6 million people march into Washington, D.C., armed to the teeth, to just say, stick it. Because the people that are the victims in these wars, they seldom have any arms, even though we seem to be able to give guns to nice, honest groups of young men like this. They're okay because they just slaughter innocent women and children, so there's nothing wrong with that. They have these cute cutout trucks that seem to be able to carry all that ordnance around town rather quickly, shoot down aircraft even. So these missiles, called the Fatah 110s, are supposed to have a very long range. The newest version that's just come out has a 185-mile range that can shoot well into the depth of Tel Aviv and many places in Israel, and they're very concerned about that. We're concerned too because war only begets more war, really. We, as human beings, seem to have to find a better way to work out our problems. I'm not exactly what you'd call a peacenik. I would have to say I'm more of the, ultra right-wing style, but, being one of those radical gun owners and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is most wars are orchestrated for the banksters to take advantage of us, we the people, the innocent people. So they even say in one of these articles, I think it was a BBC, when the rebels who are cast as actors in a Western plot, and there's so many actors in the United States performing school shootings, marathon bombings. It's just hard to believe even that we don't have a lot of actors in other places where we want to have, as a book I've always referred to, Lights, Camera, War, put out by a Newsweek foreign affairs editor, on how they stage all this crap. That's probably no different with these pictures that came out about these gas victims. See if I can find some quickly here. Because as far as there's been cameras, there's been these incidents where they just put out all kinds of stuff. Like you've probably seen the pictures of the poison gas. These are old pictures. They're not pretty, but I just found this is Kurdish victims of sarin gas, 1988. Japanese subway attack victim. And then this woman here is, one of Saddam's classic wounded. You notice the, horrible wounds that these chemicals produce. Like, just take something from under your cupboard, right? Like your bleach, some kind of super duper cleanser, pour it on your skin and see what happens. Like, you're going to blister and bubble, it's going to be sore, and that's not a chemical weapon, that's just stuff you use to clean around the house. So imagine when you get the really good stuff, how dangerous that can be. So the classic photos of the event had these people with, what looked like this white foam all over their face, and it just looked fake because there was just too much. Let's see here. I can find this a little better. There we go. So it just looks like these people are covered in shaving cream or something like that. So that doesn't look like any kind of real foam that's going to come out of your body, because this is thick and creamy, as opposed to, aerated blood or fluids that come out of your body that have lots of bubbles in it or something like that. So they say, as they always fake shots at the beginning of a war, you'd almost have to agree that this is also faked. One of the other big things that just seems to be missing is the shock effect in the skin. Like if you're putting out this much juice, you got to be in some terrible trouble inside your body, I would think. So, you know, it's definitely not mustard gas because you don't see the big boils on the skin. Is it a fake job? And given the track record of our fearless leaders, I'd say pretty much that's what we're dealing with. This woman has some blemishes on her skin or whatever, but she doesn't have, they probably cleaned all the white foam off her. But are we getting the real deal or not? We can't trust them because they lie to us all the time about everything. Like I tell a lot of people, they told me the sky was blue. I wouldn't believe them. And the other thing too is you get close to death, you turn blue. So if these people were in serious crises of one sort or another, you would think that they would be turning blue. Then Carla Del Ponte, UN top-notch investigator from days past, went on a Swiss TV show that was aired in Italy and Switzerland to say that her first indication or understanding of this event is that this nerve gas was used by the opposition. That's a game changer. Big game changer. She did not rule out the possibility that government forces might have done it too, but she stressed there's been no conclusive findings. As maybe the really big conclusive findings is Israel released the gas when they blew up the chemical plant at one time or another. But see, they can't talk and tell you where they bombed and how they bombed and when they bombed because they got to keep that a secret. The UN doesn't condone what she said. They poo-pooed it 6 ways from Sunday. But that might be one small segment of the truth. So the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Alexander Lukashevich said he was deeply concerned by signs that world public opinion is being prepared for possible military intervention in Syria. And that's how you play propaganda. They put out some kind of false crap to get everybody panic and crap their drawers, and then they change the game. They sort of get some degree of permission from you to take things apart. In the book of Isaiah, they're very, very clear about what happens to Damascus, and that's why Syria is so important. That's why this potential conflict could be the game changer. Because the burden against Damascus, behold, Damascus will cease from being a city. It will be a ruinous heap. The cities of Auror are forsaken, the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. They will be as glory of the children of Israel. So is that telling us like Israel's going to nuke them maybe? In that day, his strong cities will be as a forsaken bough. There will be desolation because you have forgotten the God of your salvation. So this one seems to have a lot of significance as wars go, because it's been cast very, very well in Scripture. The Prime Minister of Syria, Ceremonial Post, he escaped a bombing attack. 6 people were killed. Is that something from the rebels? Is that another bit of a game changer? Part of the game changer for the people who live in this area. 70,000 people have been killed in this conflict, and if it's about banksters, that's 70,000 too many. 5 million people have fled their homes. There's 1.4 million refugees. Financial losses run into the tens of billions. 400,000 homes have been completely destroyed, 300,000 partly destroyed, and a further 500,000 have structural damage. That, too, is too much. Something that could provide good evidence, perhaps, for some of the things we look into, for people who like to do a lot of research. The Vatican Library is putting 82,000 rare manuscripts online at their website, vaticanlibrary.va, and they probably keep a lot of the good ones still concealed, but that is a treasure trove to get into. The Vatican Library is one of the greatest libraries on the face of the earth. You know, it'd be an amazing thing to get locked into, but they probably don't let you out alive if you know too much. There was an attack in Africa, in Tanzania. 8 people were arrested. 4 of them were Saudi nationals. And it just kind of comes back to like this Boston bombing where they catch, you know, the guy who's probably Osama bin Laden's son, Hamza, the Crown Prince of Terror. He's taken down at the scene, has inside knowledge that there's going to be another bomb. But he's released, and they go after the patsies. The Photoshop patsies, really, because we're probably the only ones to ever even draw the slightest bit of a point of reference to the fact there's all kinds of funny lines around their legs and other parts of their bodies that imply that that's not a legitimate picture. It's been made up, like all good war photos. They've been made up, and this one is to start a war on the American people. But at least you got to give the Tanzanians credit. They caught 4 Saudi nationals planting the bombs. Then there's a story that just kind of never really got too far. And in light of what's going on in the Middle East, we just have to shake our head and listen to it rattle and wonder, why didn't this story go too far? You figure this would be the lead-in on all the brain-dead media. Iran's president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was arrested by the Revolutionary Guard last week. He was taken into custody and questioned for 7 hours. He was warned against disclosing information damaging to the Islamic regime. He was involved in a political feud with the Larjani family, another big group running for election there. And it's just a month before Iran's general election. So we always make it sound like it's like a dictatorship and he runs the country like Hitler or something like that, when that's not the case. There's going to be an election. Not only is there going to be an election, he went on TV saying he's going to release videos of improper deals that these other candidates from the Larjani family have done. And I guess that's why they got nervous and took him away. We got something like that going on here in Toronto, where we have our former premier, Dalton McGuilty. His real name is McGuinty, but I call him McGuilty. He's the guy that spent probably hundreds of millions of dollars, our dollars that we could probably use to do many things with. And even if they were still accumulated tax dollars to build infrastructure to run the city, for, you know, transportation is one of the big things they like. Now they want to charge us road tolls, these tolls, other tolls, for whom the bell tolls, when they just basically misapplied all this money in the first place to move some power plants so they could win a couple of seats in an election and hopefully still be the government and steal more money from us. So it's kind of the same. The only thing is what we don't have Revolutionary Guards to pick McGuilty up, take him aside somewhere, slap him silly a few times and make him talk. So his guards were disarmed. He was taken into an office belonging to Hossein Taib, head of the Revolutionary Guard's intelligence. Questions over the existence of alleged documents that would allegedly prove damaging to the country's regime. Oh, probably the bad guys in the regime. He was released following questioning. Then one thing that's funny is like U.S. and British diplomats in the area were aware of the reports. So he had threatened to release evidence that voters in the 2009 Iranian election were defrauded and ahead of the country's general election next month. He warned his associates that his hand-picked successor to stand for election in June was not approved. So it's even saying that he's not even going to run in the next one. There's going to be somebody else. So he was disclosing a secret film in Parliament. So one of these turkeys, Saeed Mortazavi, could be seen discussing an apparently fraudulent business deal proposed by Fazil Larijani, 49, the youngest of the 5 Larijani brothers, who seem that if they get ahead in this country, may be far worse than what we think about Ahmadinejad and what our propagandists tell us. The election is scheduled for June 14th. little something to write on your calendar. So they fix these things all over. So what is Ahmadinejad if he's releasing stuff about corruption in Parliament? Maybe he's not half the prick they make him out to be. And we have to wonder, too, as if our American buddies have made a race-specific bioweapon, because Saudi Arabia came up with a very bizarre form of SARS, that severe acute respiratory syndrome thing based on the novel coronavirus, nCoV. There hasn't been a whole lot of cases, but most of them kind of came around people going to Mecca for the Hajj and then traveling back to their own country. Some died in Saudi Arabia. I think there was 5 deaths in Saudi Arabia specifically, 3 in England. Then an article that came out in February, I believe, in the London Sun, from a professor who deals in these deadly pathogens. Could a deadly virus wipe out Earth? Professor John Oxford from Britain says a pandemic virus like that only needs one chance to win and end mankind. And that's sort of like the prophecies that come out of the book we're not supposed to look at too, these pandemics. So it's a horrible disease. We had SARS here in Toronto a while back. Starts out, you might almost think like a cold or something like that. We have cough, shortness of breath, rise in temperature. Then the breathing becomes a struggle. Your lips start to turn blue. So they make almost like a joke of the fact that while you're in the hospital, as soon as they start realizing you got SARS, everybody's slipping into the protective gear as you're struggling to get oxygen. You're put into a special anti-infection bubble and transferred to a specialty hospital. Fluid builds up in your lungs. You're on life support. In no time, you have a 50-50 chance. Antibiotics don't work, and neither do antiviral drugs. And that's why it's so important to learn about alternative cures, alternative medicine, because the natural stuff may be very, very useful in a time like that. Garlic and onions are the 1 and 2 top natural antibiotics. Penicillin came from the oregano leaf when it turned moldy. Oregano is also a very powerful herb. The only trouble is it doesn't leave you a note to tell you which one to use, so you have to have many in your inventory and take a wild shot at it. I've always liked the biblical herb too, hyssop, especially in oil form. A quick application at the first sign of trouble. Here, near the lymphatic glands, shoots that stuff through your whole body. You put that on your skin here, you'll feel it soak through into your throat in seconds. You'll be tasting it. I always used to call it the nuclear throat lozenge. It soothes your throat too. I just stumbled on its properties by accident because if you had a bad throat, it's hard to talk. Sometimes I've got to talk for a while. So I was just using this to soothe my throat for that, and then one time I was sick too, and the bugs left real fast. So that one has some very significant abilities, I found. Saudi Arabia denies that it warned the United States. Well, that they were our friends. Why not warn us? Well, I guess if you warned us, then you knew it was going to happen, and that could mean your agents were agents doing it to us. But the Saudi embassy denied that they warned the U.S. government about Tamerlan Sarnav. But a highly placed source in Saudi said that they sent a written notice to the Department of Homeland Security in 2012, warning them that they had direct knowledge of that document. They have no record of Sarnav looking for a visa to go to Saudi Arabia too. They kind of lost that, but he was set up to go there, to go to Mecca for the pilgrimage. He was supposed to enter back in December of 2012. So Janet Napolitano, Department of Homeland Security, mistress or whatever she is, received a detailed letter from the Saudi kingdom about Sarnav and 3 Pakistani jihadis. But she probably knew that already anyway. So it wasn't anything new. These warnings were shared with the British government, Some say that they didn't name him specifically. And then they start coming up with new lies, because they always have new lies for the old lies. We have the new improved lie supersedes all previous lies. So they said, well, they had his chilling text messages. Well, News of the World could do that. The CIA, the military-industrial complex, they can't do that. They can't clone phones and send messages, say that you said this, that, or the other thing. I think it would be very, very easy to tell. Supposed to have been discussing jihad with his mother. And the Obama administration contradicts a lot of this stuff. So they said the Boston Joint Terrorism Task Force wasn't sharing their intelligence properly. I guess you can't really, because you can't say, not specifically them, but somebody in this maelstrom of intelligence agencies can't pull out their Manchurians and say, look, I got a whole room full of crazy guys that are going to do anything, anytime, anywhere. You can't share that information with people who are actually trying to stop it. Doesn't work too well. Then there was the meetings of Saudi Interior Minister Prince Mohammed bin Nayef bin Abdulaziz. They must have long passports. I don't know how they put those names in a small one. He met with Obama in January. Prince Saud bin al-Fazal had an unscheduled meeting with Obama in the Oval Office just 2 days after the Boston bombings, because they had nothing to do with it. And they make a joke in one of the quotes here, where they say of Al-Qaeda, they don't think like this. This is like a firecracker to them. And then the police come up later and say, they had firecrackers, which do blow up, but you need a shitload of firecrackers to really make a bomb. And then the Saudi government tracks radicals by launching fake websites to lure them in. So you don't even know you don't know who's who. They're making Manchurians stateside. They got fake jihadi websites all around the world. You never know who you're talking to. Then there's something that's got to be near and dear to the American psyche that you just don't see really making the hay. You know, tonight's the big Leaf game here in Toronto. That's important. Got to play all this hockey. And this story, which conquered the news last year about this attack in Benghazi. They killed the American ambassador, Christopher Stevens. There are a lot of people at the high end who are saying some pretty nasty things. They're whistleblowers. They're being threatened by the administration. They're being told their careers are over. One of them had this to say: for me, the Taliban is on the inside of the State Department building. Those should be like earthquake words, because these are from the good, decent people that really do good work or got into trying to do good work to find out that they've been subverted. One of them is Gregory N. Hicks, Deputy Chief of Mission, U.S. Embassy in Libya. He's going to testify. Mark I. Thompson, former Marine, Deputy Coordinator for Operations in Counterterrorism Bureau. Eric Nordstrom, a Diplomatic Security Officer and Regional Security Officer in Libya. Their testimony is supposed to come up tomorrow, May the 8th. The Obama administration has professed ignorance that these people are going to testify or want to testify. You see, how it works is, even though these guys have top secret security clearances, you have to ask for special permission to reveal anything that you know, even to another person who has top secret security clearances, including their lawyers. We're working pro bono to represent them through this. So they say they repeatedly warned the State Department, and all their warnings fell on deaf ears. Well, of course, because they were plotting to kill Ambassador Stevens from the get-go, in my opinion. He knew something that they had to take him out for. And they had to make it look like it had nothing to do with the administration or the Taliban within the administration. Hicks was the highest-ranking American diplomat serving in Libya. He received Stephen's phone call, and his words were specifically, "We're under attacks. We're under attacks," in the plural, as opposed to just "we're under attack." Hicks notified Washington immediately. I guess he was put on hold. So former U.S. Attorney Joe DiGenova and his wife Victoria Toensing, former chief counsel for the Senate Intelligence Committee, scoundrels all, I'm sure, are going to be representing them. The administration is purposely holding back giving them security clearances, even though they have top secret security clearances already, but to give them a security clearance for this so they can even talk to their clients about what happened and how. Jim Carney, administration flunky, just comes up with all kinds of crapola to say that they didn't apply for these clearances and that Benghazi was a long time ago. Like, it was almost like a whole year. Doesn't matter anymore. We got the wrong people in Guantanamo, let me tell you. So they want to expose what Obama was trying to suppress. So many people say, oh, this Obama, he's just, he just doesn't understand. They're taking advantage of him. They're using. Hey, look, those were my people. You killed my people. I'd be kicking in your door. And then get one of those, box cutters from the Al-Qaeda 7-Eleven to cut your testicles off before I throw you out the window. You killed my people. I want to know why. I want to know what happened. Hillary, we're hanging you outside the window by your ankles until some white foam from the artificial sarin gas shows up. We want answers, baby, not questions. So they want to know why they're preventing good, honest Americans from testifying at this committee. It's disgusting. It really is. But there can only be one answer, really. And that answer has to be they killed him. These are some of the people. Eric Nordstrom, Gregory Hicks, the embassy, well, not embassy, but diplomatic property burning, the remnants, the victim. They took him away and tortured him for whatever information they had to get. And here's Carney. Put a bag over his head, put him in a stress position, he'll talk. And this is Representative Darrell Issa, the guy on the committee, and his confrere, Trey Gowdy. This is the female half of the lawyers, Victoria. These are the guys who did it. Caught on surveillance video. All look like fine, upstanding men. And the fine, upstanding men at the top are treated like dirtbags. Just the average people you meet down at the State Department or the spook store. But good, decent people. Stuck between a rock and a hard place and hung out to dry. But I'll tell you something. You got to make choices in life. Lots of choices. I've had to make choices too. Problem with some of my employers is they make you swear on the Bible that you're going to do a good job according to God. In the Canadian swearing-ins, you prevent all offenses against Her Majesty. All of them. To everybody, impartially. That includes the ones that's higher up And even though they threaten you, intimidate you, take away employment, I'd be retiring as a big fat whatever by now if I'd have been in the job still. Would have got out quite early, quite comfortably. But you had to look them in the eye and say no, because I'm not doing that kind of evil. Because there's a higher power, a higher master that you have to serve, and a lot of these people better start coming clean on a lot of stuff. God's creation. The government's just a pimple on the butt of the planet Earth. One that can pop any time and drip pus. That's what your government is. The best liars, cheaters, criminal syndicates the world's ever seen. They mean nothing in the great scheme of things. Then another bizarre story comes from England. It's one we followed because we think it's important. That was the death of Chief Constable Todd. And we've kind of wondered if there were a lot of strange things about his death. Because he's supposed to have, committed suicide, and he's supposed to have a cell phone in one place, text messaging, and then his body's found in another place with the cell phone beside him in another place with different cell phone towers operating between those two places in that greater Manchester constabulary. So something came up. It's a bizarre state of affairs. This guy's a B&E man, breaks into a cop's house, and he steals a data stick. And it wasn't encrypted. So it's supposed to have the names of 1,000 informants, particularly relating to drug trafficking. So they take this guy in, question him. He's cleared. And then 2 months later, he's busted by what we would call a tactical unit. And they shoot the guy dead. He didn't even have a chance to surrender. They had a police marksman all set up with a 9mm Burp-O-Matic. So, the other guys got out of the car alive, but this guy that shot him through the window, they didn't even give him a chance. Just kaboom. So Anthony Granger, 36, shot dead in Cheshire last March. 100 police were involved in a 6-month operation to go after him, even though he didn't have this data stick. But they just assumed he did, because he was selling car parts on the internet that were very similar to the policeman's car, which he is alleged to have stolen. But there were probably thousands of cars of the same make, model, and whatever. One of these informants was allegedly beaten up and given a hard time, but if he's only one out of 1,075, that's not too great. But the police armed themselves with machine guns, pistols, tasers, and tear gas. The armed officer fired one shot into the center mass of the driver. The police operation was called Operation Shire. There was no sign that Granger or others had weapons or access to them. 16-strong police armed response team attended that place. Granger's home was searched. Numerous computer memory sticks were seized. None of them were the missing device. The Independent Police Complaints Commission has not finished its investigation into the killing. Big deal. All these things, these whitewash committees have all been set up all over the world with the same thing. Look into something, burp, do nothing, and move on. So they're supposed to decide whether the officer involved should be charged with manslaughter. I'd say flat out murder, personally. So I'm thinking that this stick contained a lot of the details that probably back up why they killed Chief Constable Todd. And I'll bet you a lot of it has to do with the pedophile nation that exists in the United Kingdom that goes to the highest levels. That's something they're going to kill him for. And that's something they're going to shoot this Granger guy for. The other occupants of the car were charged, as they make up offenses, and acquitted by a jury in 45 minutes. So they had absolutely nothing on these guys relating to that. They just had to kill this guy because he may have seen the stick and known what's on it, and dead men tell no tales, especially tales at the high level like that. Another terrible story was this fire that happened. The Primac factory in the West Bengal state. It's been the talk of the town. So this is a big story, not just because so many people died, the numbers just keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. At the time I was looking at it to do last week, it was in the 300s and then the 400s, 500s. It's probably into the 600s by now as we speak. But this is the effect of free trade. This is what free trade does. This global downward spiral in competition to take away all the wages and benefits of people, to go to the lowest common denominator, to cut costs, so that this is your workplace. You didn't even need Israel to come in and bomb it up. And many people are wounded and taken away. The downside is most of these workers were probably women, so many children will be without parents, specifically the mother. Here are the dudes who make the money to get you to work for nothing. They'll probably be charged with manslaughter, if not murder, because they were warned by the police to get out of the building, not to go in that day. And these guys couldn't give up a day's profit. That money is so important. It was way more important than the hundreds of lives. A lot of protesting, fighting in the streets, because as people realize what's involved in this stuff, they get very, very angry. See that? They're very, very angry. Stoning the security building on these premises. A lot of these like free trade zone employment places are just basically slave labor establishments of the highest order. And they're planning that for you too. That's the hard part. See, if we were giving away tickets to the sports game, there'd be people banging on the doors, climbing up the walls with ropes to get these tickets to go to a game. Something's coming along that will mean you'll have to compete with Bangladesh for wages and benefits, if you even get a job at all. That's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Will undermine democracy, empower transnational corporations. So basically what they're going to do, in the States they're going to fast track these free trade things, something Nixon came up with. It's like the monster from hell that without any congressional oversight, not that you need any because they're all droids anyway, they'll just rubber stamp anything that comes along, but they're going to give trade promotion authority fast track to Obama so he can just sign this and declare war on the American people by basically selling out America, which is probably a corporation anyway, to another corporation and getting rid of you. Now, you have absolutely no participation in this process of negotiations. None of your elected representatives do, but 600 corporate representatives are on the inside detailing what's going to happen and how. They have access to the documents. Your elected representatives don't. So we get the bait. We go to all this pop culture, pop entertainment, they take away the country. So even things like if you wanted to have a Buy American program, that would be not allowed. Period. It undermines all kinds of laws. So if they were dumping sludge into bodies of water that we drink from, we couldn't stop them. That happened here in Canada, just under NAFTA. So a U.S. company, Lone Pine Resources, is suing the Canadian government because they lost $250 million in profit because Quebec put a moratorium on fracking under the St. Lawrence River. Other corporations, that's probably why they're making so much money until the banking crisis. Anyway, Chevron, Exxon, Mobil, Dow Chemical, Cargill launched 450 investor cases against 89 governments, including the United States, for over $700 million to be paid to these corporations. That's your money they stole. I guess let's play the little clip on President Obama telling us that the Constitution is no good. It's just a piece of crap to wipe your bum with, and that we have to progress to something newer and better.
We, the people, chose to do these things together because we know this country cannot accomplish great things if we pursue nothing greater than our own individual ambition. Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices, because what they suggest is that our brave and creative and unique experiment in self-rule is somehow just a sham with which we can't be trusted. We have never been a people who place all of our faith in government to solve our problems. We shouldn't want to. But we don't think the government is the source of all our problems either, because we understand that this democracy is ours. And as citizens, we understand that it's not about what America can do for us, it's about what can be done by us together through the hard and frustrating but absolutely necessary work of self-government. And class of 2013, you have to be involved in that process.
Isn't there anybody there to throw some eggs? The lying prick. If government is so good, pal, give the security clearances to those people from the Benghazi raid to tell the truth. But because it don't look too good on you, you won't let them speak. Makes a big error in there too. Says that America's a democracy. It's not a democracy, it's a republic. You fail. And you're speaking at a university. And then he stole Kennedy's words, kind of like, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Switches them around a little bit. He's a thief. He steals your money and he steals another president's word, jumbles them up a little bit, hands them back to you on a platter to say, pull down your pants. I'm taking over. And nobody's got eggs. Hopefully there's a few million people to walk through Washington. Can we show the plastic gun? We got to get one of these little 3D printers here. Got to do it on mine? Okay. Let me see here. BBC. There we go. Play-o.
I'm here in Austin, Texas, to take a look at a project that's trying to create the world's first fully functioning gun made from a 3D printer. Now, this is where it's all been happening. As you can see, it doesn't look particularly high-tech, but let's go in to take a look. This 3D printer here cost $8,000 off of eBay, and just down here at the bottom you've got the final two parts of the gun. The parts of the gun are designed using computer design programs, and then this is fed into the 3D printer, and it builds up the parts by adding layer upon layer of plastic, as you can see here.
But this is a plastic barrel. There's no metal insert here. There always seems to be a little bit of controversy online that, oh, well, they're using metal inserts. And that's it.
We've come to this firing range in a rural backwater just south of Austin, and the gun is over here. It's been assembled now and is going to be tested for the first time. The aim is to make this gun as easy to replicate as possible, and it means that 3D printing is already on the radar of law enforcement agencies around the world.
Criminals are still going to be able to access weapons and guns more easily offline, but some of these risks will emerge, and that could include, for instance, sectors of society that haven't traditionally been able to get hold of weapons, like younger people.
Outstanding.
There's states all over the world outside the United States that believe, or that say, we're a gun control state, you can't own a firearm. That's not true anymore. I'm seeing a world where technology says that, yeah, you'll pretty much be able to have whatever you want.
Aren't you worried about the kinds of people who'll be using this technology?
I recognize that the tool might be used, yeah, to harm other people. It's what it is, it's a gun. But Again, I don't think that's a reason to not do it or a reason to not put it out there. I think that liberty in the end is a better interest.
3D printers have been hailed as the future of manufacturing. The idea is that one day, instead of going down to the shops, you'll be able to download and print out your own goods at home. But as with all new technologies, as well as the potential benefits, there are dangers too.
And government are going to stop technology. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes I wonder, at the infinite level, what if God had the ultimate 3D printer and made the creation? Who says it couldn't happen? His technology is better. This is almost like something from Star Trek where you have the replicator that can make anything. They make body parts out of these things, skin. Anything may eventually be made out of. This is just the first one. The infant stage. Imagine 30, 40, 50 years ago where a replicator will make anything. Corporations are working up to make like furniture and things like that with these 3D printers. So that all the component parts are made, assembled, and away you go. The world is changing. The world's changing at light speed. It's just absolutely amazing. And these Luddites think that they're going to stop progress like this. Not a hope in hell. So I hope there's a lot of people print off some 3D plastic and take it to Washington to go along with some of that good old-fashioned hard steel on the 4th of July for a Second Amendment march. To teach the president that it's not a democracy. It's a republic. And a republic honors each and every citizen's rights, even at the expense of some of the greater. And maybe because this is a replicator, it's like Star Trek. Remember when Mr. Spock died from the original series? He said sometimes, you know, the needs of the many require the sacrifice of the few, and he gave his life to save his mates. Each individual is an important component of the United States, but it has to be voluntary. You can't say, well, because you're the one and we're the many, we're just going to bulldoze you into the ground. It's not the way it works. You can freely give, you can't take. And that's all these people, the New World Order, want to do is take. They want to take every country, they want to take all the power, they want to take all the money, and ultimately they want to take you. And the only way they're going to be able to do it is they have to disarm you and make you helpless and prostrate to destroy you. So we see from Benghazi, and we see from many other things, these false flag attacks, the Sandy Hook lie, the charade, the actors. I don't have time to do the actors tonight. We're running out of time, aren't we, Aaron? Yeah, see, he's running out of time. And we know that this has all been psychological warfare 101 on the American people, committed by nefarious assets of the United States corporation to brain screw you with their propaganda. And hopefully we get a time to do that the next time about these crisis actors. They're all the same. They keep popping up all over the place. And when one of their patsies or Manchurians get caught, they got a CIA-style lawyer who represents all these turkeys all the time. It's just a big charade. Not a charade from a 3D printer, just a charade to control your mind, to control how you think, so that they can take everything you've got. And the only chance you have to prevent that is to change the channel, stop the programming. So come back to Conspiracy Cafe next week. Same that time, same that channel, but on Thursday. And we can stop them. We thank people for contributing. Every little bit helps. All my ink jets are dry almost, so I got to be a big shopping trip tomorrow because it takes money to run this show. Pay for it to get supplies. Everything else I do gratis because my life's at stake too, and so is yours. And I think it's so important that we have to forget about a lot of things like sports and entertainment and go for the brass ring and win this monkey back while we still can, before they blow up Damascus or start the financial collapse or whatever. We're the only hope. So thank you for coming out. Thank Aaron for producing the show, and we'll see you then. Good night.